All right, so if you've ever traveled before, you know that it is super exhausting and stressful. And then also if you've ever captured things before on your camera and worked on a project, on a shoot, anything like that, that is also very stressful. So putting the two together into one big travel trip stress ball of capture sounds like a lot. So I've been able to travel to some pretty cool places over the last few years and capture cool things. And so I've learned a lot about what not to do when you're traveling as a creative and capturing stuff, and I've learned what to do and how to be efficient in certain areas. And so that's what we're going to talk about: how to travel and be efficient and make cool videos and have fun on your trip, because it's just a hard thing to do sometimes, and you might not think it is, but when your plane touches down and you step foot on new soil, on a new place you've never been to,
woo, this is crazy,
with this big project idea, these things you want to capture, it's a lot to take in, especially if you've never been to that place before. We're in freaking Iceland. Welcome to London, everybody. We're in Valencia, Spain. Earlier this year, me and my friend Tim went to Europe. We traveled to 3 countries over 2 weeks. We went to Iceland, England, and Spain. I'd never been to any of those places before. He had been to Spain and I think London, but it had been a while. So this is basically a fresh trip for both of us. We were going to new places, seeing new things, and we were both creatives. We're both creatives. We were both going to capture things. We wanted to do all this stuff in this 2-week period, and it took a lot of realizing that this was going to be a big trip and taking that in initially. It's day 3 here in Iceland. It's still very windy. Glacier back there. I broke this down into 3 categories: efficiency, travel, and capture. First one being efficiency, and that is the most important thing of any project or travel or trip that you go on, is to be efficient, because to be efficient is to have a more enjoyable trip. And so how do you do that? First thing we did was we planned everything. We planned the whole trip, everything we wanted to do. And to do that, you have to have a great tool to put everything in. This is not a sponsored video, but Wonderlog, this is the 2nd time I've mentioned y'all, so I'm not gonna say it again. Please sponsor me because y'all are incredible. And we used Wonderlog on our trip to Europe for 2 weeks, and you can literally put everything in this app, in this program. It's incredible. We put every place we were going, we put our flights, our Airbnbs, our rental cars, notes, weather, literally anything to do with information for your trip, we put in Wonderlog. It's incredible. It's on your phones. You can literally just look up, wake up each day and see what you're doing, see what the vibe is. And yeah, get it. It's great. I recommend it. And so we started with that. We planned everything in there, made the trip run really smoothly. And luckily Tim, who I went with, very good at planning. So he did all that good stuff and I helped out as much as I could. So also get Tim for your trip because he's great.
Hey y'all.
Next thing to be efficient is to pack minimal gear. That's why there's this thing called being a minimalist. And it's because it speeds up your workflow, and it makes you more efficient if you have minimal things to worry about. Bring minimal gear on a trip. You can spend more time worrying about what you want to capture, the creative ideas that you want to pursue, the places that you want to go, and not so much the gear you want to use. I don't think that should be a priority when you're capturing, when you're traveling. It should be about what you're creating. And so take pieces of gear that you really want to use, that you really only need to use. 2-week trip in Europe, I brought 1 camera body and 1 camera lens and a drone. But as far as what I was holding in my hands, 1 camera body and 1 lens. And it was incredible. I captured everything I needed to. It all looked great. And above all, it made the trip more fun because I only had that to capture with. The 24-70 is just such a great lens. If I only have 1 lens, it would be the 24-70. It can capture wide and tight shots. And so the point is, though, is to know what you're creating, which we'll talk about more in just a second, and then pack the gear according to that, but pack very minimal. And it's also great to have a great bag. I use the Peak Design bag. I don't know what size this is. They have different sizes, but this is the best bag I've ever owned. It is functional. It's not super big, which is great. It can hold a water bottle, a tripod, a laptop, hard drives, camera gear, anything you need. It can go in that bag. And then this next point leads us into our next section, which is the travel section, and that is to plan out your day to some extent. This leads to being more efficient in your trip because you have the few places that you want to go, but then you also leave the day open to not be so strict on a plan and to be spontaneous. And I think that's the perfect mix, to just have a few places that you really want to go to that you absolutely cannot miss, and then the rest, maybe have some ideas of other places that you might want to go to if you have time for it, but just be open to being spontaneous and exploring and driving around. When we went to London, the one thing that we really wanted to do was to go to Stamford Bridge, where Chelsea plays, our favorite soccer team. That's what we wanted to do. That was our main reason why we were going to London. Obviously, we had other reasons. We wanted to see other things, but that was the big one. And so we planned the trip around that. We planned, if we wanted to go to restaurants or shops around this area in that day, it was easier to plan like that because we didn't have like 20 things that we were trying to plan around and fit into 3 days. We had one main thing. This is what we really wanted to do. And then from that, we just planned the stuff around that and left a lot of room for just being open and free to do whatever stuff that we didn't have planned. We're actually in Iceland and heading back to Reykjavik to the airport to go to England. And we had like a few hours, on the drive and when we were going to get back to Reykjavik of just downtime. We didn't have anything to do. And so on the drive back, I was like, well, let me just look at Google Maps and see what I can find. I like looking around and just seeing like what looks cool geographically. And so I found this like really cool off-road that leads closer up to the mountains. And so I was like, let's just, turn on this road. Had no idea where it was going to go, but we had the time to do it. I was open to being spontaneous. And we went down the road and it was one of those where we were just like, let's just drive for 5 more minutes. Maybe we'll see something. And we kept driving and finally we saw something. It was this really cool church and like this small, like abandoned looking town. And it was like probably one of the coolest spots that we went to in Iceland. And it was all from just being spontaneous and being open to doing something that we had no idea what the outcome was going to be. So this is our first time like being, I guess, spontaneous this trip and like going down a random road. We've kind of just followed a map the whole time and it's just led us to just such a cool spot. So be spontaneous and go off your plan sometimes because it can lead to really cool stuff. It's super important to know your surroundings, know where you're going, especially if you've never been to a place. Having fun researching before the trip and planning out stuff is great. Plan out stuff to do, but also don't be afraid to lean on local knowledge when you get there. Don't be afraid to talk to people, get to know people. I love Tim, and one of his best qualities about him is that he loves talking to people. And so one thing he would always do when we went to eat at a restaurant or got coffee is he always asked people, what is there to do around here? If the person lives there, they probably know some places around there, and he always was eager to ask them that question. And we always heard really cool things that they would say that we didn't even know existed. And so it makes sense to ask a person who lives there what to do because they live there, and it just creates fun conversation. You can meet people and find places that you didn't even know existed. When we were in Iceland, actually, we were in our Uber and we asked our Uber driver about Northern Lights because we really wanted to see Northern Lights while we were in Iceland. And we had read some things online that we might see them. It was like a 50-50 chance. We weren't too confident about it, but we did plan some time to be able to see them because, we wanted to see them. We didn't know if we'd be able to. And we asked him, he was like, yeah, I don't usually see them this time of year. And so we were like, oh, okay, great. Well, if you live here and you don't see them, then we probably won't see them. And so the attention and the priority that we put on seeing Northern Lights, maybe we could put on something else. So that was just one, example of it literally might have even changed our plans to ask somebody information or recommendations about things that happen in this area. I mentioned this word already a ton in this video, but be open to being spontaneous. This is a part of travel. Things will go wrong. How well you learn to roll with the punches is how fun of a trip you will have. It's not very fun to be with somebody or be the person with somebody who isn't good at rolling with the punches and going along with things that don't go right. Travel by itself, things will go wrong, and on a shoot and on a project, things will go wrong. So putting those together, something will go wrong, whether it's the weather or, a camera overheating or I don't know, whatever it is, something will go wrong on a trip. And you have to just be open to stuff going wrong and rolling with the punches. Some of the best memories and best times that I've had while traveling is because of things going wrong. And it was because I was just open-minded and I was ready for whatever was going to happen. I had stuff that I wanted to do. I had stuff planned, but if anything happened during the trip that altered the plan, I was ready to roll with it, ready to have fun. And then the third section is capture, what you're actually capturing. And the first 2 sections culminate into this last section. Being efficient and traveling and planning out your trip will all dictate what you capture and how well your capture is and your final product is. It's super important because to know what you're capturing when you go to a place is to have a more enjoyable trip. I've been to a lot of places when I first started traveling where I just went and wanted to just capture anything and hopefully make something good at the end. Hopefully I had something of worth to make at the end. And this is with any project that you do. Always plan it out. It doesn't matter if it's just a fun trip. I like to know what I'm going to capture when I get there because it just makes for a more enjoyable trip. You're not halfway through the trip, wondering oh, maybe I can make these clips and these shots into this and hopefully I can capture some more stuff later. When I went to Europe, I wanted to make 3 vlogs, one for each country we went to, and then a cinematic recap at the end. So I knew when I was going to Europe, I was going to be vlogging a lot, I was going to be capturing B-roll. I knew the tone and the vibe of the films that I wanted to make. I watched Inspiration before I left, and so just having somewhat of an idea. It doesn't have to be a detailed plan. I certainly don't like doing that. I like to leave room, again, for being spontaneous in my capture as well. But just having some kind of plan of what you want to capture, what the purpose of your creative thing that you want to do there is, what the purpose, why you're going to this country, why you're capturing this thing. We're actually going back to Iceland, and this time I want the purpose of what I'm creating and what I'm capturing there to just be more of a really cool cinematic film, whereas last time it was kind of more just laid back and picking up the camera and filming and capturing random B-roll and stuff like that. Stuff for a vlog. But then this purpose for the next time I go, I want to capture really cinematic shots and frames and sound design and all of these things. So that'll be the purpose of that capture. So just having an idea of what you want to capture when you're at a place before you go will lead to just a more enjoyable and more efficient trip. Capturing cool things and making cool videos is awesome, but you have to remember it's really important to just be present in the places that you're at as well, and take it in with your own eyes. Don't always be looking through a screen. Prioritize actually seeing the places with your own eyes. Prioritize just setting aside time, maybe leaving your Airbnb without a camera at all, and just enjoying the places that you're at. We live in a beautiful world with beautiful waterfalls and mountains and countries and towns that I want to see with my own eyes, that I also want to capture with a camera, but I want to make sure I'm having a good split of both. All of this culminates into this as well. If you have, if you've planned out your trip, if you are good at being efficient and packing minimal gear, you can capture the thing that you want with the one camera and lens that you have, and then you can enjoy being there, and you're not spending all your time going through 5 lenses and capturing every shot from every angle with every form of media that you have. You can actually just capture it and be happy with what you have, with the gear that you have, and then just enjoy being in the place that you're in. Even though this Europe trip was 2 weeks and it was a lot of planning, and it could have been the most hectic trip of our lives, it was honestly one of the most enjoyable and smooth trips that I've been on, because we did everything so well beforehand and planning things out. I knew the purpose of creatively what I wanted to capture. I had minimal gear, I had a great backpack, I had a great app to search up things through Wonderlog. We talked to people who lived there, we knew what we were going to do, we left time for being spontaneous. All of these things culminated into one of the best trips, probably the best trip of my life, because it was just so smooth. We had fun, me and him captured what we wanted to, and I felt pretty just kind of driven to make this video to share kind of what I've learned over the past few years, and especially on this trip, of how to just have an enjoyable trip when you're a creative and when you want to have fun and also enjoy the places that you're at and capture really cool content. Yo, there he is. So we went to Europe, had a great time. So in those 2 weeks, and really any trip that you've been on, what is the best piece of advice that you would give to someone as traveling efficiently as a creative? What's like your best thing you've learned or piece of advice?
First thing that comes to mind is to have a plan, but don't be afraid to break the plan a little bit and kind of go off and try some new things. So I think back to the Iceland trip, so many of my favorite moments from that trip were the things between the things on the itinerary, pulling off on random roads, finding different things that even as I'm planning to go back, it's like I don't think I could find the stuff that we found if I tried to. But it wasn't the big tourist attractions, it wasn't the big things we circled on the map, it was the stuff in between. So I think there's something to be said as a creative when you gotta allow yourself to still be surprised, I think is a huge thing. And if you take out all that element of surprise, you go in just knowing exactly all the shots you're gonna get, all the different places you're gonna see, you'll probably get the shot. But I just think back on how much I would have missed and how much we wouldn't have actually seen if we had been willing to go off script a little bit.
Yeah.
And another little asterisk is don't take too much gear, because I always do that and then I regret it.
All right, bro. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man.
See you in Europe again soon.
Yes, sir. We'll see you.
All right, so like you said, don't pack too much gear and be spontaneous. If there's 2 things that you walk away with in this video, knowing it is those 2 things: to don't pack a lot of gear and be spontaneous. That's all I got. All right, y'all, thanks for watching. Appreciate y'all. It's a small channel, but we're growing slowly, so keep on watching and supporting, and I'm excited to keep creating. So leave a comment of the next place you're traveling to, and I'm traveling to Iceland again, which I'm very excited about, and hopefully gonna make some cool content. So thanks for watching, y'all, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.